And good evening, everybody. Tonight is March 8th, 2020, and it's our public meeting work session this evening. We're glad everybody could join us tonight. And with that, we will do our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance
to the
flag
of the United
States
States
of America
and
and
to
to
the republic
for which it
stands
one
nation under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all. Okay, next on the item on the agenda, I will turn it over to Deanna for the roll call.
Liz McNaney, President.
Here.
Denise Hall, Vice President.
Here.
Martha Similaro, Commissioner.
Here.
Catherine Carter, Commissioner.
Here.
Ruth Damsker, Commissioner.
Here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Isaac Kessler, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police.
Here.
David Brill, Finance Director.
Here.
Van Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
Everyone's here.
Great. Thank you, Deanna. Next on the agenda is the announcement of executive session, and I will turn it over to Solicitor Gallagher.
Thank you, President McNaney. The board has met in executive session since our last meeting. The board met on February 16th to discuss matters of collective bargaining and potential litigation. And the board met again on March 1st to again discuss several matters of potential litigation.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments and concerns. Do we have anybody calling in tonight?
There's no public comment.
All right, thank you. So with that, I will turn it over to Township Manager Zadell.
Thank you. Okay, well, tonight, the first thing I'm going to go through is my departmental report, which you all have in the packet, and it has our 2021 suggested goals. And I just wanted to give a moment for the board to have a short discussion about this goals list that I created from conversations with each of you. So it's also some of the items on the goals list are also items that were inherited or moved forward from our 2021 goal setting session. We achieved so much during 2020, I think, despite COVID-19. It's kind of a miracle, but we still have some more to do from that first goal setting session. And I just wanted to give all the commissioners a moment to comment on any of those goals or see if there's anything that anyone would like change now that everyone sees the results of those conversations put together in spreadsheet form.
Sandra?
Yes, Commissioner Carr.
What is under goals, planning, zoning, and codes enforcement? It has the last one, Tracer implementation.
Yes.
What is that?
Tracer is our new software that we got in 2020 that we started in our code and zoning department. So it's a much more robust software than we used previously. So that goal has been achieved. It should be noted as achieved. Yes.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And right above it, develop a notification system for removing cars from the street during winter emergencies.
Yeah.
Exactly what type of notification system are you thinking about? Remember an email sent during one of the storms where I think Willard said they were having some issues with people moving their cars. So
yeah, that was a big issue this year, I think, due to the fact that we had a couple good snow years and we forget what's so important during snow emergencies, which is there has to be wide open roads for our public works department to be able to clear the roads effectively. So what we did this year, the chief and Willard and I spoke quite a bit about it. We basically send tons of information ahead of the storms, and then we declare snow emergencies, which we post on all of our media. And we also use the Everbridge system, which I found to be useful in these storms to notify residents. And then when we got to like the third or fourth storm, the chief and I talked about ticketing. Because at a certain point you have to ticket and tow or people don't take you seriously. But chief's on the call. I don't think we ended up having to do that. But I think we still have to brainstorm, if there's any other way to get the information out besides our normal channels. I don't know that there is. I think people just really have to know, hey, you can't park on the streets when it's snowing. But chief, if you want to add anything.
We still go door to door as needed. If we can't
yeah.
find other ways to raise people, our officers will stop, do their best to track the person down. And that helped avoid a couple of cars being ticketed and towed. And we do put out warnings on people's windshields well in advance of the storm also. When we know an emergency is coming, there'll be an orange card on their windshield. So it's a continuous effort. And Willard knows to call us if there's a particular problem and it has to be moved, it has to be moved. But despite all these difficult storms, we were pretty lucky not having to do that this time.
Yeah, we are lucky. So what happens is in problem areas, if we can't get through, the snow really builds up on the sides. And as you see, we're still waiting for the snow to melt, and you just can't have that sitting on the streets for so long. So we're going to continue to work on a notification system. But I guess maybe I should mark that as completed, because I think we have a really well-rounded notification system at this point with social media, the cards, it's like a hand visit. I don't know what, like a, knock on the door. We're doing everything we can, I think.
Okay. I thought it was something, since there wasn't a completion date and it says develop, I thought it was something that you were thinking about, a plan of action or something.
Yeah, I think maybe when we were discussing it in 2020, we didn't spend that much time discussing what our plan was, but we honed it this year with all the snow. Gave us an opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
So should we, for a lot of these goal dates, the goal date was 2020 or even 2021, some of these things that I don't know are possible still with the COVID. Should we change some of them to 2022 or?
Sorry, I just had some trouble.
Like the first one, hold meetings at various locations in the township. I think that's an awesome idea. I love that idea. But the goal date was 6/1/20, not knowing that
Oh yeah.
COVID was
Well,
coming.
that was,
And I don't know if this is the year to do that, because I think it'll be novel just being able to meet live again in our own meeting room whenever that can happen. So maybe that would be a better goal for 2022, realistically.
Yes. I'm sorry. I think I forgot to update that whole column, but there's several that are turning into 2022. So you found
Okay.
an
'Cause it's
error. It's like a typo issue
Yeah.
more than.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's
Was,
okay.
Denise, in my notes, when I talked to Sandra about it, I wrote COVID delay to 2022. So, because I was.
Yeah, there were actually quite a few of those items. So
Yeah.
I think
thought
it's just
so too.
a
I just didn't see any.
scrivener's error.
Yeah. Okay. So
I can update those and redistribute it to the board.
yeah.
But
Okay.
as far as substance of the goals, does anyone have any? Good catch, Commissioner Hall.
I just think that given the fact that, almost a year ago, today, I guess it was a couple days ago, we were all thrown something that none of us could have predicted that it was going to last a year and everything. And so I know I'm very proud of the staff and everybody who worked on this, who were still able to complete a lot of these, given what we were given. And we thank you for Sandra for taking the lead in that and getting a lot of this still able to get accomplished. So thank you.
Sure. Okay,
I have
I'm sorry,
another,
Commissioner Hall.
I have another addition that in the memo that you put, that I had suggested was the community branding / logo. We are a lot further along in that process, thanks to the county planning department, and thanks to the wonderful help we've had from the planners and the graphic designers at the county in conjunction with our comp plan. So I don't know that we need to allocate funds. We don't have a specific, we could go further with the branding, but I feel like, and I don't know what you think, Commissioner McNaney, but I thought that they've gone so far with it that maybe we are at an okay place that we don't need to actually allocate funds for it.
You can design them, but they still have to be made. I mean, there's a cost to making signs. Signs aren't cheap. So there should be, I would think, allocation for it, not the design. I mean, we're not paying for the design if the county is helping us with that, but you've got to produce the signs. So isn't there a cost involved there?
Well,
There
I
will be
was
some,
thinking,
sorry.
I was thinking when I made the suggestion for the goals and for possibly adding to the budget, is I was thinking we were not the execution of getting the word out about the branding or the logo so much. I was thinking more along the lines of hiring a marketing firm or someone to come in and actually help us brainstorm and come up with a logo or come up with the slogan. We didn't come up with the slogan. I mean, we could still do that. I just feel like we moved so far ahead with the county in this process, way further ahead than I thought we were going to. I really feel like we're landing on a good logo for the township, that I thought that maybe we could wait and see, maybe another year talk about, oh, do we want to go further with the branding? Do we want to do something else? But that was just my new thought. I wasn't even thinking we would be, I was thinking that we hadn't figured out the process for executing it or implementing it into the township thread yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sandra? The sewer on the tax bill, is that just adding the sewer tax onto our real estate tax bill?
The sewer
Yes.
rate, this was one of Commissioner Damsker's suggestions to add the sewer rate to the tax bill, which this is not the way that we currently do it. Currently, we bill, I think
You
it's
bill
biannually.
separately.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask Dave, if he could tell us what that costs, the mailing costs and what those costs are, and then we can, because it should save a lot of money. And not only that, but when it is on the tax bill, that when it is paid earlier, then we would get the money faster, because it's paid like it not that there's no 2% for the sewer bill, but it's paid by the mortgage companies earlier than you would normally get it from the residents. So you do benefit, as far as that the township would benefit by getting a larger portion of the revenue faster, because the mortgage companies will pay it.
Dave, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. A question I would have is, we'd have to change it to an annual bill. Right now, we do for resident, we have two types of billings. We have residential, and then we have commercial.
Right.
Our residential are twice a year, and our commercial are quarterly, so 4 times a year. The commercial wouldn't be able to be changed, because the billing is based on metered activity. So it's the water company tells us how much water they use, and the assumption is, well, if they use that much water, then they must have that much discharge, and then we bill them accordingly. But the residential, we could do annually. I mean, the board would have to change the ordinances to have it annually as opposed to every 6 months. And the year that we do it, we'd have to figure out the timing of that, how it happens, because we're always in arrears. So like, I think February, we're billing the last part of last year, and then so it's like a cycle. So you'd have to map it out on how we would roll out the first two billings. But it would, the benefits are that we get the money earlier in the year, and it would reduce the amount of effort required in the finance department to do the billings. Right now, we do 4 residential billings. And
And
if you-
mailing is not cheap, and the mail
Yeah.
is not as dependable as it used to be.
True. So right now we do 4 billings, and we mail it out 4 times. The only part that confuses me is if we do it part of the tax bill. Right now we have a lockbox system that collects the majority of the revenue. So most of the taxpayers send in their sewer payment to the lockbox, and then the lockbox cashes the check, generates an electronic file that we upload into our accounting system. So it's not much hands on it. It's very automated.
But do your people stuff envelopes and do all that to send out the bills?
Oh,
You pay
that's the
somebody
front-
to do that?
yeah, that's the front end. I'm trying to talk about the overall process. So putting both of them on the same bill, I'm not sure how we would do the collection and the posting into the ledger.
I don't
So
know.
that doesn't have to all be figured out at this point, I would
No.
say. I think,
No.
and thank you, Dave, though, for explaining the process. I think just in general, we're looking for if the full board is interested in us exploring this process, or if this is not something that the full board is interested in.
Dave, how much do we get for sewer throughout the year? Do we get for what amount of money are we talking about?
It's like about like $6.5 million, and about 60% of it's commercial and 40% of it's residential.
Yeah, but I'm just
So there's-
saying, if
there's a
we get
lot
that
of bills,
money
though. There's,
earlier, if we get that money and we have use of that money earlier, that's a substantial amount of money.
Well, definitely, you would save in mailing. You would a good portion of it you wouldn't get earlier because it's commercial.
Yeah, but I'm saying the residential.
But the residential you could get up earlier. It would be might be a hardship for homeowners to pay it early. So you'd be changing something. Now they're paying it every 6 months. Now you're going to ask them to pay it in a year, all in one time.
No, that's part of their mortgage. It's part of the mortgage companies pay it. If it's on that tax bill, they pay whatever is on that tax bill.
That's only if you have your taxes escrowed, but the first year, if we were changing it, the escrow is figured out like
Yeah, it would be
based on
delinquent,
what's
yeah.
generally done. Yeah, so the
Yeah.
escrows, the first year, it probably would require more in escrow, and there's just some things that would need to be worked out.
Yeah,
So
the
I
money
think we
has to
just
be
need-
there for it to be paid. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
They come from the mortgage company. I mean, you have to
So-
give the mortgage company money.
right.
Well, I have no objection to, because I mean, we did this in Cheltenham for years, and we saved a substantial time and personnel, and we would get it with the mortgage companies. Now, you may have to maybe adjust your ordinance a little bit to be able to adjust for the way you bill. But I think it's something, and I'd be happy to do some research if you guys want me to too, because you're talking 6 million, it's a lot of money. If you get $1 million
Yeah.
in February versus in June, I mean, it makes a difference.
So from the rest of the board members, is this something you'd like the staff to look into and pursue for this year?
I don't know if it could be done for this year.
I'm not sure.
How
Or for
about,
2022?
how about we have, because the finance department would be looking into it.
Yes.
How about we wait until we have all the positions filled, the new positions in the finance department? And then once we have a full staff, and then we're gonna have a little extra, once that's all in place and up and running and everybody's comfortable with their roles, then maybe they could explore it and look into it.
I think that's a good idea. And I would say let's make it a 2022, because Dave's gonna have to get those staff trained and up
Right.
and running and things like
Right.
that. Okay. So we'll add it to the list for 2022. If one other commissioner says that they'd like to do that, then, okay, we got it.
Oh,
And then I think, this is just, we don't need formal votes, but I appreciate the hands. I think for Denise's logo idea, I would concur. I don't think there's a lot more cost involved in rolling out the logo if we get what we're looking for from the comp plan process. The cost would be minimal at this point because it would just be something we roll in, like if we're ordering new stationery or if we're ordering something. I don't think we should dump all the old things at once. We'll take it in a process that's a little bit rolled out. So. And then the last item for discussion on the memo was the leadership training for the Board of Commissioners. So if 3 of you are interested in that one, these are really the 3 topics that were like independent new ideas. That's why they were put on the memo. So would everyone like to move forward with that?
Sure, I'd be interested in leadership training.
Yeah, but what kind of topics are we talking about? Can somebody share that? I mean,
So I
a little bit more
don't
detail.
want to, we have a really busy agenda, and I think Catherine can describe her idea and then we can move forward, but I don't want to get like too into the weeds with each idea because I just don't want this discussion. There's a lot to discuss tonight.
Yeah, it's not written in stone, Ruth. I just thought that as a team, that it would help for us to go through some leadership training together, especially in light of COVID.
Right.
We really haven't spent a lot of time together because of COVID, just to get to understand and mediation and talk about and the differences between 1 vote versus 5 votes, or how to listen and coach and all those things that are required in terms of leadership and being in team building.
Okay, thank you.
So if everyone would like to move forward with that, we'll add it to the list. And then I just need a little direction on which year you're looking for.
I'm okay with that, but I would probably do 2022 again, because I think we don't know what's happening the rest of this year at this point. And I think leadership training, if we're going to do that kind of team training, we should be together to do that.
Yeah, not virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, 2022 sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. I will revise the goals list and send it out to the board, and then I will share it with the staff and we'll get working on these new goals. Having trouble with there we go. Okay. Up next, we have Van and the planning and zoning report.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Sandra. So some of these you've seen before. For those listening, I'll take a little bit longer just in case it's the first time for them. So first up is zoning hearing board matter 2007, was continued from last year. This is finally known as the Jeppy property on Sunnytown Pike, about 3 acres. It's been the subject of some consideration for a while. The date, importantly, has been scheduled and set and advertised and posted for 2 weeks from tomorrow, March 23rd. So it is a matter that will be considered by the zoning hearing board. You as a group can decide whether you want to participate or not. If you do, you normally would advise the solicitor. The matter, for those following along, has been modified such that the current proposal has specifically been changed to permit 17 townhouses on that property. Do we have questions on that one? Because I know that particular subject's been around for a while. Next, 180 Wissahickon Avenue. It's a land development being processed through administration, mostly by Megan and Isaac. The Planning Commission has reviewed it. It's a straight land development, and it's a vacant property. I think I mentioned last time, just around the corner from the post office, North Wales Post Office. So that is wending its way in your direction. I don't know whether it'll be on in 2 weeks, or next week, but it could be on next month for your consideration. number of kind of technical issues that will probably be in the resolution, one of which I know I've talked to Lauren about. They do need a reserve parking agreement, which is new for us, but has been used by the township in the past. It simply allows an applicant to pave less parking than they think they're going to need, with the idea that should the parking be necessary, either they or the township can mandate that it be installed at a later time. It'll be a kind of a detail, but it's something that perhaps you will have be looking at for the first time. From last month, 2102, zoning hearing board, 815 Keating Drive. For Commissioner Carter, you'll remember that is up in the new Gwynedd Ridge community. And that was considered and was approved by the zoning hearing board. New for you, I think, is we're not going to hear it till April, is Liberty Gas. They have, they're upgrading the old, the gas station's been there for years. It's just they've repositioned the market. It's now Liberty Gas. It's at the intersection of Church and Sumneytown Pike, or I should say Broad and Sumneytown Pike, for those of you that have noticed it. They've installed signs without a permit. Some of them are not permitted. So they were submitted, they were given an enforcement notice to cease and desist, which they have done. And they now have filed an appeal for permission to install or to keep the signs they have installed at that site. You'll hear that again next time. Shops at Upper Gwynedd, Royal Farm, Yippee is almost, we're getting close to starting. It would seem, after a slow start on that site. It's looking, I think it's a great improvement to what was really a rundown property for a number of years. The applicant is going to ask you, or has asked you, for permission to hold a public hearing to consider a conditional use for a day school in the building, in the one of the two buildings yet to be built. So don't know the details much on that yet, and I don't know whether Sandra, you or anyone else wants to weigh in on that at this time. Okay. That may or may not be on the agenda for next time, but it'll be something that probably wouldn't happen before, I would say, April.
I think it's going to be on our April agendas.
Yeah, April or May. Whatever you decide. It would be a public hearing. You've had conditional use public hearings before. This is a use that is authorized in the zoning ordinance, but requires a special hearing to be considered by you. So you, the commissioners, become the jury, so to speak, in determining whether or not it meets your, they meet the conditions that are established in the zoning code, and any general recommendations that you might have. And then finally, a new zoning hearing board application at 222 Hunter Road. That'll also be heard in April. I put it on since it's just for anyone who wants to drive out there. It's a front yard variance. Applicant wishes to put a sunroom on their property, and they have determined that the best place for it is in the front of the house. They're finalizing their application. But in order to do that, they would need a front yard variance, a dimensional variance, in order to put that addition. That's a what we call a dimensional variance that will be considered by the zoning hearing board in April as well. That's it for me. Questions? Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dan. Excuse me for that report. Isaac, you're up next.
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
For this month's engineering report, it's included with the packet for the projects that are ongoing. As is usual, we wanted to just highlight a couple of main items that are in progress right now. This month, they're all, I guess, roadway, sidewalk crossing related. So a few of these are kind of gone into a bit further depth later in the agenda, but I did want to highlight them just a bit to let everybody know their status. The first of which is the 2021 road program. So we had that go out to public bid, and those bids were opened at the end of February. And as mentioned, we can kind of dive into the bids received a little bit more later in the meeting. But once we determine how we'd like to move forward with it, with an award at the business meeting, we would then look to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the awarded contractor, and then we'd look to schedule, the start of that work. I did want to highlight just one thing we have in the specifications, working with staff for the road program, is that it does specify that the absolute last day of their contract work would be the 20th of August, and that's to just ensure that they're all wrapped up and done on our roads and sidewalks before the new school year starts. So we do have that specified. We don't anticipate it'll go all the way to that date, but it is identified in there as an important date that we want to make sure they're completed by. The second item is the North Wales Road trail crossing improvements. We have submitted the highway occupancy permit since North Wales Road is a PennDOT roadway. So they review our crossing and our layout. They, as typical, provided a few comments on what they like to see with certain signage, and their latest kind of preferences with those kind of push button light up crossings is constantly evolving. So we got their comments back this week. We'll work to put together a resubmission to address those. And we're hopeful that that should be approved, hopefully with one more submission to them, and we'll be all permitted to construct that improvement there. That's where the Green Ribbon Trail crosses North Wales Road. And the last item we wanted to highlight is the Monco 2040 grant. Also an item later in the agenda, but it kind of piggybacks on some of these pedestrian crossings in the township, as well as a few intersections that the stop signs are a little difficult to see for drivers coming up. And they've been highlighted by our traffic folks in the township, the police department and staff, just areas that can be improved for the overall public safety of not just drivers, but also especially pedestrians at some of these busy crossings. So we're hopeful we'll hear good news back from that. We adapted to make sure that we submitted a really nice application package for the Monco 2040 grant for some needs that we have. With the original package didn't quite work out, and we're happy that we were able to get a really nice kind of proposal in for work that the township could benefit from the funding they provide. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. As mentioned, some of these kind of pop up again later in the meeting.
Were there any questions for Isaac? Thanks, Isaac, for a great report. The next few items, let's see, of course I turned ahead, there we go, are a few items that I'd like to suggest for the consent agenda. So items 9, 10, and 11, which are the reports and the meeting minutes, I'd like to put on the consent agenda, which I think is probably fine with everyone. And that brings us to item number 12 on our agenda, which is a reallocation of budgeted revenues. We are so lucky in Upper Gwynedd Township to have an anonymous donor who has chosen to donate some funding to the township. This year, he indicated that we should use it for what we see best as sort of program related funding. I think he'd like to see things happen in the community. And as a result of some discussions with board members, I've prepared the ideas for how to spend this $50,000 donation. So Board of Commissioners, I just wanted to give you a moment to discuss the 3 or 4 different allocations that we have in the memo and see if anyone had any questions. for allocation, sorry.
I do. So I would like to see them specified for what like it's going to be used for, or what this donation is for. I think making it just saying here is a little here you go, here's $10,000 or $20,000. I'd like to be a little bit more specific with that. We know like the library could use extra for different things. Like we already know that. But I think with the rest, we should be specific on what we would like to see that donation given, used for, per the generous donation. Then we can respond to the person that gave us the generous donation, you know, that this is what it's going to be used for. And I think that that makes it a little bit more personal as well and appreciative.
Okay, I think 2 of the items listed are very specific with the Jacks Lane open space and the QRS funding. And the library, I do think from what I heard from the library in the past is they just need general operational support.
Correct.
So I think it's best to give it to them and let them decide, because I know they had to make some staffing changes and they may need additional literature. I'm not sure, but I think leaving that one a little less specific might be more beneficial to them.
Yeah, because we know their
one,
what they asked for, and their with
yeah,
their
we're
budget,
very clear on that they have a lot of needs. Yeah. So Commissioner McNaney, did you have a suggestion for the last item for? Okay, great.
You want it now? Yes?
Yeah. So the rest.
Okay.
Yes, you can give
I
it
have
now.
talked to.
And then
I would like, because of the way we had to restructure some of the funding that we gave to our fire department. One of the things that we had to put on them to pay for was their annual banquet. And the banquet is a celebration of those volunteers. And we've all been to it. They present awards, they present, it's just a nice evening for them. So my suggestion is, with limitations, of course, that I've discussed with Solicitor Gallagher for liability reasons and whatnot. One of my ideas was to give them some of that money for their banquet, so that it would come out. It's a celebratory event, which they deserve. And I was thinking we could give them that donation to pay for that celebration for them, because they should be celebrated. And that was just my thought for that. But
You know how much that is?
they had
How
10,
much
I think if I recall, it was about
10,000. Yeah, it was about 10,000. So, and again, it's Denise and I have been to them for several years, and Ruth, it's just it's a nice event. And I think, you know, that's just one way we could thank them, by giving them this donation back of the money.
So this
Again,
would would we be obligated to do that annually? I mean, are we saying that we're going to do that every year?
No, the way that we have this structured is via resolution. That's just we're reallocating unplanned revenues. So we got this unplanned revenue and we're going to allocate it via resolution, so the staff knows exactly how the board would like to spend it. But none of these are repeat, you know, payments. These are, we got a, like I like to say, a bluebird that dropped in our lap that's so wonderful, that flew by Upper Gwynedd Township, and we're deciding how to use the funding this year. If it comes next year, then, you know, sometimes with this donor, they specify different sources, sometimes they don't. So I think we just have to look at it, and in any communication I make to any organization that we're giving the funds to, there will be a very specific letter of, you know, in the case of the suggestion that Commissioner McNaney just made, I could specifically say this is for your banquet with these restrictions, or this is for your QRS services with these restrictions, or no restrictions, whatever the board decides. So it's a one-time decision just for 2021.
That's provided that they can even get together and
They can
have
even
some
get
sort of
together,
celebration.
right.
You know, so that's, you know, we have to take that.
Hopefully
into
at the end of this year.
Yeah, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. That was just one of the suggestions I had, so I didn't, if anybody else wants, you know, to earmark it for something else, we can discuss that as well.
I mean, I like the banquet idea, but I also like the idea of them being able to have more incentives for their program. And I know they're working on rebuilding their fitness center. So that would be another suggestion.
They're doing, Catherine, I didn't hear about their fitness center. What are they doing to that?
Just rebuilding it, getting trying to get new equipment for their workout center. And I think they started, but I'm sure they could use some more equipment.
That's another good idea.
I like the idea of targeted funds.
Yeah.
Rather than just giving them a blank, well, not a blank check, just a check for X amount of money and saying, do whatever you want. I like the idea of the targeted funds better.
Well, then we know where it's going.
And so does our donor.
Right.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah, I should have added that as well, that I will communicate back to the donor with whatever decision the board makes. Sorry.
I was saying I agree on some parts of it that it should be designated, but I also agree that, you know, for the entities that we're giving it to, they should have some say so. If it's donated, then he donated for, they should have some say so on how they spend it. It shouldn't be every last penny that we're dictating, you know, how they spend it. I don't agree with that.
I was unaware that they were even doing a fitness center, so I'm glad you brought that to our attention, and we can certainly consider that one as well. If we can find out what their needs are for something like that, I'm sure 10,000 could go a long way to help them with that. So how do we proceed?
So I just am looking for a consensus of the board of how to prepare the resolution. So I think that everyone agrees with the amounts in the resolution that are suggested. I haven't heard any suggestions otherwise this evening. So everyone does agree with those amounts. And it's just the specificity for the fire department's donation. One suggestion I have is I could just reach out to them and
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
And ask them if they had a priority list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that they could provide that for us, because I think the resolution just says, you know, to the entity. So I don't think we have to have it all figured out. I can bring it up to your attention at the business meeting. And then I think
Okay.
you'll have a good amount of information about each item. And I would also like to let each entity know in advance of the business meeting that you'll be discussing it, because it is something to celebrate, to give these awards. And I'm sure that the entities that are going to be receiving them will be excited to be present to say thank you to our donor.
Yeah, I mean, do we
Okay.
usually
board.
have the donor come to that particular?
No, this
meeting?
donor is
No.
very anonymous. Very
Oh,
anonymous.
this is our anonymous donor,
Yes,
Yeah.
or is this another anonymous donor?
the same anonymous
The same,
donor. Yeah.
okay, right.
I like that idea, Sandra. I think we should reach out to all of them, not
Yeah.
just the fire department, but maybe all of them, just to make sure that these are just our ideas, but maybe they want to spend the donation another way. I think we should reach out to all of them and see how they want their ideas. I just don't want to be like we're dictating if someone's donating, for me, as a principal of a school, someone's donating the money, then I want to be able to spend it, you know, my way, for what my needs are. I wouldn't want anybody telling me, here's a donation, but this is how you have to spend it too. I just don't think that's a good way. This is my opinion. So I do like the idea of reaching out to all of the entities, not just the fire department.
Is there any legal things that we should worry about with anything, Lauren, with this?
So There's no problem with earmarking the funds. And there's the only caution that I would give as far as not earmarking the funds is you want to make sure that, you know, and the example that we use was if they're having this year-end event, we don't want the township's $10,000 going towards the bar package. And we want to make sure that our carrier is on board with however we're using the funds. But other than that, the board is kind of free to decide how they would like to do this. And, you know, once the board decides how they want to proceed, we can work with Sandra and Dave to make sure that everything is lined up appropriately.
So Sandra, you'll reach out and then let us
Yep.
know what they.
Yep. And just,
Sorry.
yeah, just knowing that the full board is fine with all the amounts makes it easy start. I can reach out to the organization, speak with them, and I'll have this to report back on for the business meeting.
Do you know
Okay.
whether for the annual dinner, do they get sponsors? Do they have sponsors that sponsor? I'm just curious. Do they get?
They
outside
do their
people that-
fund drive, Ruth. So they do a ton of fundraising in a lot of different ways, and I'm sure that that helps pay for the banquet. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if everyone's good on that item, then we can move on to the board appointments. There's a list of wonderful resident volunteers to be appointed to different boards and commissions. I think I can't remember actually if we put this on a consent agenda last time, but it does seem like a consent agenda item to me. I love putting things on the consent agenda. Okay, I'm doing it because no one said not to. All right. Next up is the resolution regarding extending the WQIP intergovernmental agreement. So this is our Wissahickon Water Quality Initiative that we work with a bunch of other municipalities on. And it's just an extension of the agreement to continue working towards as we await the EPA and DEP response on a WQIP plan that's been submitted. Did anyone have any questions on this item? Okay. Next up, we do this every year. It is National Library Week in April, from April 4th to 10th. And just from the timing of our meetings, we need to do this resolution in March. And we've invited Jane to attend, which I thought would be a great idea, knowing that the township provides a good bit of funding to the library. I think it's great to get a chance for the residents to hear about the different programs at the library. And I know they've had to shift their operations due to COVID, and Jane will just tell us a little bit about what they have prepared in the upcoming week, special week, and then probably all of their programming as well. Okay, moving on to Commissioner Hull's section. Items 16 and 17 would be consent agenda items. And then we have the resolution 07-2021, which is the preliminary final subdivision land development approval. Whew, this is a mouthful for the North Wales Station at 180 Wissahickon Avenue. This is a land development approval that you guys will be asked to approve at the business meeting. And I just like to give plenty of time for us to talk about these land developments in advance of you having to take a vote next meeting. And we have all of our consultants here if anyone has any questions. One thing that sticks out in my mind about this development is that it does include the reduction of some significant trees on the site, and there will be a fee in lieu of trees where we can plant trees in municipal open space. It's sort of, you take the fee and then you do utilize that fee for tree planting, which, you know, we have a new EAC. I think over the next few years, we'll have no trouble spending those funds for our Arbor Day programs, things like that. Megan, is there anything else, or Isaac, that I should be highlighting about this plan? Of course, I'm the manager, so I go to the money and the trees because I'm the EAC liaison, but I'm sure there's other important aspects of the plan that we might want to highlight. I know it's been through the system quite a bit.
Just two of the conditions that the Planning Commission had asked for. They had some concerns about the construction entrance and the site distance. So they did request they recommended to the board it being included that they would use, before they use the construction entrance, they would make sure that everything's cleared so that there is the site distance there. And then also it was conditioned upon what Van had mentioned earlier, is that reserved parking agreement, to include the 45% reserve for parking. Those were just the two things that the Planning Commission noted as of importance.
And I'll just mention as well, you'll notice that they do have 2 waiver requests with their proposed request for preliminary and final at the same time. That's one of the waivers, is to request both of those simultaneous. And the second is a stormwater related one that actually is because their stormwater underground facility infiltrates through the ground quicker than in our ordinance. Our ordinance has a timetable for basins at a minimum of 24 hours and a max of 72 hours. You typically see that for above ground basins. You don't want the water sitting there too long. That's when you start getting the mosquitoes and that kind of stuff. The minimum time required is really so the basin can hold it before it goes into the system, whether it's a creek or the pipe networks. And it's also more of a water quality. So if it goes down into the underground water, it has a chance to kind of filter in the basin. So being that theirs is an underground basin and that the issue is that it's infiltrating into the soil, just because they have that really drainable soil underneath the ground there. We didn't have an issue with that. But if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. Those are their 2 waiver requests they have. They did have some significant stormwater management as part of their plan. So we were pleased and agree with their approach for that. Should improve that side of Wissahickon Avenue there a good amount in front of the property that they're developing.
Megan and Isaac, thank you so much for pointing out so many important points that I didn't point out. So good thing we have a team. Do any board members have any questions? No? Okay. Next up on the agenda is the consideration of sending the township solicitor to the zoning hearing board meeting in support of the JEPI, well, I shouldn't call it the JEPI plan, the WB Homes plan for the JEPI property is a more accurate way of describing that. So everyone knows this developer has worked really hard to change and make their plan something that the residents are comfortable with in that area. And this is something that the board has heard about many times. So at the business meeting, you can make a decision on how you'd like to move forward with that. But I think the way that we'll be listing it on the agenda will be that you'll be sending the solicitor in support of the application. Okay. We have an easy one, a 2131 Bethel Road indemnity agreement for an HOP application. Are there any questions on this? No? Okay, great. Sorry, I'm just clicking away here. Next up in the public safety arena, item 21, we would put on the consent agenda. I feel very hopeful that sometime in 2021, we will no longer be doing these. And also the next item, we have a visitor from our police department here. Matt Toro is one of our officers. Matt, you can go ahead and turn on your camera if you feel comfortable doing so. He is, oh, there you are. Hi, how are you?
Hello. Good, how are you, Matt?
Good. Matt is
Sandra.
one of our officers. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
Can I stop for 1 second? Ruth, can you mute your screen? It's just, you have this buzzing. I text you, but you didn't hear me.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Carter. Oh. You know what?
I don't see the mute.
Maybe Foster, if you could mute Ruth, and then there we go. She looks like she got it.
Yep, I
And
just
then-
muted her.
Okay, great. Ruth, you'll just have to look That's like a tongue twister for me. You'll make sure you know where it is if you want to say something, or just wave around and we'll get you unmuted. Okay, so hi Matt, thanks for joining us at this meeting. As you can see in the packet, the police department has provided a wonderful memo about a two very exciting additions to our township family. Officer Toro did a lot of the research, and I can turn it over to Officer Toro and the chief to talk about, 'cause this item is really theirs. So
Thank you,
gentlemen,
Ms.
take it away.
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna let you go ahead with it since you did all the background work. I was pleased to come along for one of the visits and saw how much knowledge you've already acquired and continue to acquire as we have thoroughly vetted this. No pun intended, but it came off pretty good through University of Penn Vet. And go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Adele and the Board of Commissioners for hearing this out tonight. So the chief came to me and the rest of the department by the end of, it was our end of year meeting in 2019, saying that he wanted to start a canine unit. And the reasons why, and me and another officer had put in for it, and we started doing the research on, there's many different ways to get a police dog. It wasn't as simple as just going to one vendor. So we did the research on what vendor would be best with the thought of cost involved and everything. And the clear choice was University of Penn. They have what's called the Working Dog Center. They take dogs on donations from good breeders, and they some are search and rescue dogs, and they're bred from puppies to search and rescue dogs. Some will be dual purpose police dogs, and they're trained from puppies up until a year or 2 years old when they're sent with their respective handlers to go to their search and rescue teams or police departments. We have narrowed it down to 2 dogs. The chief, Officer Tarter, and I went a couple weeks ago to Penn with the help of the head trainer there, Bob Doherty. He clued us in 2 dogs. One's a Malinois and one's a Dutch Shepherd, and they're currently in training now. It's kind of neat. They spend their days in foster homes. So I believe it's Penn employees take these dogs home. So they're never crated. They're very sociable dogs. They spend time with the foster home, and during the day they're sent to Penn to do their training, to do their track training and their bite training and their scent training. It's a pretty neat system that they have there. They do a lot of research there. They have dogs sniffing for COVID now, which is pretty cool. And they monitor the vets there monitor these dogs as they go through the program. So Chief, if you want to fill in any blanks there that I missed.
No, I think we had the chance to review several dogs that are under their care and are being trained. And then we spent more time with 4 dogs in particular, and narrowing it down to those 2 was definitely not very easy, but I feel very comfortable that the 2 that we picked, and for the purposes that we're going to pick them for bomb detection and for drug detection, and the match with you and Ed Tarter are really good. They're all impressive, but Fury and Gunner, I think, were outstanding. And I really appreciate how much time the doctor, the veterinarian, spent explaining everything to us. And as you said, they're very sociable dogs, and as you know, that's been a goal of mine, to have them fit our style. And we're talking about trying to have dogs fit our style of policing, but it can be done, and I believe the way we're going about it is the way to do it.
Yeah, when I was thinking of different ways to deploy the dog besides tracking somebody and besides sniffing for drugs or sending a dog into a building to do a sweep for a bomb, what a great conversation piece for a mental health patient that's out of their wits for that particular moment in time. And these dogs are sociable to the point where that's possible. These aren't junkyard dogs from years back when police departments used to get dogs from just anywhere. These are socialized dogs that have an off and an on switch, and it's pretty neat to watch it. And with your blessing, we plan on deploying them in many different avenues besides just the typical tracking and biting and searching for drugs and bombs.
I'd just like to add.
Sorry,
just one more thing. The training, as Matt said, the dogs have been trained and they continue their training every day. The training that Officer Toro and Officer Tarter would go to is really in many ways to train them. The dogs are good. They have to adapt to the handlers and vice versa. and they make sure that's a good gel and a good fit. So the dog's training has been ongoing since they were puppies. Am I correct, Matt?
I believe since 8 weeks old. You can if anybody's interested in looking at them, if you go on the Penn Vet YouTube page, you can watch both dogs, Gunner and Fury, and they're named after. We don't name them; they're named after World Trade Center dogs that were search and rescue dogs. So that was near and dear to Dr. Otto's heart, and that's what she decided to use for names for these dogs. So you can go on the Penn website and visit their YouTube page, and you can watch Gunner or Fury from the time they're very little up until probably a couple weeks ago.
I'll definitely be doing that tomorrow, Officer Toro. That sounds like a great way to use my time. I wanted to also just comment that you guys have done such a great job, but also really important to bring up that point about the names. It's a really wonderful way to remember those dogs. And then the last thing is, there's no way the board's going to approve this if you don't promise to bring these guys to one of our first meetings that you can, where we're not on Zoom.
Absolutely.
I would like to get them so well trained. I'd like to get them so well trained that the dog can sit in the room without anyone else there and just take my place sometimes, if that's okay.
Chief, I'm not sure if that's going to be possible, but it would be nice to see them demonstrate their amazing skills. And you, Officer Toro and Officer Tartar, once you're fully trained, it'll be great to see what you guys can do.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get up to snuff to where you're, competent. But we'll put the time in. I'm not worried about that a bit.
Do any board members have any questions for Officer Toro or the chief?
Just a little side thing that reminded me was something you said. I remember at one point in my teaching career, we encouraged kids as they were learning to read to their dogs, because the dogs don't judge and they don't interrupt, and they were just, so soothing and comforting to kids as they were learning to read. And when you brought that up on how the dogs could be used for other things, I thought of that, and I think that that's really, it was one aspect of all of this that I didn't even think of, on how they could provide comfort as well. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's just another plus with these dogs.
Sure.
And thank you for all the extra time that you're going to be putting into this. This is going to, I remember when we got a dog and I was so excited to have a puppy, and then a week in, I was counting the days until puppy time was over. So I know it's going to be a lot. I know it's going to be a lot for you guys to take on, and we just really appreciate that, because we all think it's going to be really great for the program.
I think it's going to be mutually beneficial. The time put in will be well worth it when it's all said and done. And every canine handler that I've talked to, it's been a resounding answer of best thing I ever did. The best 8-10 years I had was with the dog, so it seems to be pretty unanimous.
And we've been getting a lot of positive feedback too from the community. They're excited as well. I know a lot of residents that we've spoken to, and we've told that, we're getting these dogs. They were excited as well. So that's good. Thank you.
Sure.
I agree, President McNaney, on that note, and Sandra experience. This is one of the police programs that we really truly can partner with the community about. There, people definitely like dogs a lot more than cops, and it's a nice way to bond with the community. If you follow our Facebook page and you see, we'll put a post up and for something fairly routine police related, looking for a suspect or something, it'll get a dozen shares or so. The last missing dog we put up, a Rottweiler, 1,100 shares. So people in our area are definitely into the canines, and it's a great way for us to connect with them.
I saw that post, Chief. I can't believe it had 1,100 shares. That's
Hey,
viral.
Got her home.
Say. Yeah, I know. I'm glad. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Thanks so much, Officer Toro, for coming to the meeting. I'm glad. I don't think that since I've been manager that you've gotten a chance to speak to the board. I wish it was in person, but glad you were able to do it tonight.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to the board for giving us this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. Commissioner Carter, President McNaney, everyone. Thank you. So.
And obviously, it looks like you're in uniform and you have other things to do, so we will not be offended if you have to sign off, okay?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The next item on the agenda is another item from the police department regarding East Prospect Road. The board, we talked about this last year. I'm sorry, I can't remember what month it was, but we said we would follow up in January, which we did, send letters as the chief's memo indicates to the residents on East Prospect. And none of them were very positive about an increase in the speed limit. So the police department has recommended that for now, we just keep the speed limit as is. So if the board doesn't have anything else to discuss on this topic, it'll be coming off the agenda. This is really an informational piece because we're not going to be looking for action at the next meeting. Okay. In the Park and Rec and Public Works section, Commissioner Damsker's section, we have a hopeful item for the contract for the fireworks. We've added a COVID clause to the contract, and as you recall, this year we pivoted with our fireworks and did just a fireworks event when we couldn't do the carnival. So we would hope to do the same this year if we can't host the full carnival. It's going to be, I can't even imagine. Trying to imagine the carnival in a COVID world is like a bouncy ball in my brain, but we'll figure it out. Thank goodness I have Sarah.
Yeah, if I looked at all the cost of the fireworks, but they look like they're really exciting new kinds of fireworks, all kinds of shells and all kinds of things. So Friday night's going to be Friday night's going to be a little smaller, and Saturday night's going to be the big one, but they really they give you a detail of what it's going to look like. And I love fireworks, so you're asking the wrong person, but no, so hopefully they will be able to do it.
Yeah. Next up is the road program bid award to Allen Myers. They came in as the low bidder on the program. There's still a little bit of computing that we're doing on the staff side to figure out, as you can see in the road bid, we proposed it with 2 alternate bids on top of the base bid. So the amount you see on your agenda of $686,000 and change is the base bid amount. And then there's 2 alternates that would allow us to get ahead of next year's road paving program. Isaac, I think this was your suggestion in conjunction with Willard, that if we do this, these ADA ramps the year before we're going to pave, we're able to really get a jump on our paving project for the next year. So currently we have to do the ADA work before the paving. We award the bids in March. They have to scramble to get the ADA ramps designed. And then I would say of all the times that I've been here, that's what slows down our road program, is getting that ramp work done. So Dave and I are still computing on the finance side what we can do with the 2 alternate bids. But we'll have an answer for you on that at the business meeting. Did anyone have any questions about that? Okay. Isaac spoke earlier about the 2040 grant. We had to do a little bit of a pivot when our other opportunity fell through, which we're still going to be working on this year. But these suggestions that were part of this grant application, as Isaac said earlier, are all from our traffic safety officer, Bob Pro, and the police department, areas of concern and safety. So hopefully they'll smile upon us in this grant application. Also, we have a 5K run. Looks like Ruth needs to be unmuted. We can't hear you, Ruth.
There is background. Somebody has either a bobble or a bracelet or there's something that I keep hearing.
Okay, I can't hear it. It might have been
I was hearing, but
microphone.
it sounds like, it's either a bracelet or something I don't know. All right. I just keep hearing it in my ears. So I thought I was hearing things, but.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm not hearing it, but hopefully Foster Digital can tell us who it is if we're going down that path. Maybe it's me. I don't have a bracelet on though. So
Sandra,
the
just
Laurel
real
House.
quick.
Sorry, Isaac, go ahead.
Yep. For that Monco 2040, so the grant for that this year, the deadline was March 1st, which we were able to submit our application in time for that. the agency, they understand that meetings don't always line up with those deadlines. So that's why in the application package, there's the drafted resolution. And that's what we would have before you for the business meeting to authorize. And once authorized, we would send that to the grant agency to swap out that page in the application for the township. But they do that just because they know meetings don't always line up with when they have their grant deadlines. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Isaac. That was an important point. Thank you for pointing that out. Laurel House is looking to have a 5K this October in the township. They are doing a COVID plan to do waves of runners. And as you can see in our Park and Rec Director's memo, she did research to see if some other communities are starting to allow these types of races, and they are. So if anyone has any concerns about allowing a 5K, I think you should raise them now rather than take this to the business meeting, if there are concerns.
I thought about it because, the whole reason we haven't had any races since COVID happened because of those big groups of people together. But if they can do it in, groups of 20 or groups of 25 or 30, I mean, when you're running, if there's enough room, you can naturally spread yourself out. I was thinking about, our basketball courts and how we get groups of kids there now, teenagers and even adults who come and play. And I'm sure some of them are great with the masks and some of them aren't. But that's also a situation where it's hot and it's sweaty and they're outside. And we've been successful with that. And this is the end of October. So that's really still quite a far away from now. I think there's a lot of potential for this to work. I also think that if for some reason it did have to be canceled because we realized the numbers weren't as good as we hoped they would be, or we didn't think of some aspect of it, I think everybody would understand because of the year that we've just been through. So I would be okay with moving forward with it.
Yeah, actually, if you hit the blue thing, and it says that they're going to do waves. They're not going to have everybody running at the same time, but they're going to have a certain number of people that are going to be running. And then that some may have to, depending on how they're doing it, some may have to wear masks. They've tried to. Now, I don't know. We'll have to see, obviously, what's happening. But it looks like they're taking it into consideration, adjusting it, not just having hordes of people just running.
Have we gotten any other requests for any races besides this one yet?
I'm not sure. Sarah and Sergeant Brinkman processed the applications. I think this might be the first one we've received this year. I know last year we received one or two.
Yeah, well, just I think with the way that I agree with Denise, the way that they set this one up, it sounds like, if they're able to have it and they go forward with it, it's a good setup. But it's just something we need to make sure if we open this up for this one, that if there's others that come in, that they too follow, certain, restrictions and guidelines to not to make it a super spreader event. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so we'll just have to, keep an eye out for that. But it sounds like this one's well thought out and they have a good plan.
Yeah, I just want to read here what it says here, that they will be having waves of people racing, 20 to 30 people per wave. So they can maintain their social distancing rules. They will also have no more than 250 people attend the event at a time, and masks will be worn when social distancing cannot be maintained. I also polled some townships of Bucks, Munco, and this is from Sarah, and most said that they were moving forward with the 5Ks in 2021. These include Upper Moreland, Whitpain, and Munco, and Warrington and Bucks. So that's what Sarah said.
Okay, I'm not hearing any big objections. I know we're all cautious and we'll continue to monitor things. If the governor, if there's different rules that come down from the Department of Health or the governor's office, obviously they'll have to follow those. So we will move that forward for approval at the Board of Commissioners business meeting. Next up, we get to wastewater, a wonderful consent-filled section. So for the, oh, do we move the payments to the consent agenda? I don't know why I'm flaking now because it's the end of the meeting. Yes, thanks, Deanna. So 28 and 29 would go to the consent agenda. Item number 30 also could go to the consent agenda. And item number 31 is our sludge hauling contract. We've had an interesting turn of events with two bidders bidding the same amount on the bid. So we have a tie. So we have communicated with those bidders today and are going to work to take care of that tie before your Board of Commissioners meeting. And it's actually done if both bidders consent by a coin toss. So I am very excited because I am the coin tosser. But we have a very specific process that we've worked out with Lauren's team and sent to the bidders. If they both approve it, we would move forward with the coin toss. If not, we'll come back to the drawing board. And the board always has an option to reject all bids and redo it. So that's where we stand with that one. More to come at the business meeting. Any questions? No? Okay. We also, the employee that we're looking to hire for the collection system passed all of their background checks. So that'll be an action item just confirming that hire for the board. And they're looking to start on March 22nd, I think. So it's great news. And then we would just have the approval of the open and paid invoices, and that's it. So I'd like to open it, send the meeting back to you, President McNamee, for any comments or questions from board members.
Does anybody have any further comments or questions regarding anything on the agenda? No?
I also, sometimes we give an opportunity for public comment again.
Yep, that
President
was my
McNamee.
next.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
No, I was going to say, do we have any buddy that has called in that would like to ask anything?
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. So I guess with that, then we can call it a night. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I had one. I read in Sarah's report that there's a lot of positions opening for different jobs for this summer and whatnot, and to help spread the word.
Yes.
So we'll spread the
There's
word
so
to
many.
all the hundreds of people listening.
Yes.
There's job opportunities, summer employment. So to check that out. And I think that was all. Ruth, you're muted.
I think.
Oh, yeah. Murray retired, John Murray retired from the Parks and Rec Board. So there is an opening at the Parks and Rec Board.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, then with that, if there's nothing further, we'll adjourn the meeting and see everybody next week.
Yep.
All
Good
right.
night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.